There's 3 games left in the 2023 NFL season, but we're going to take a look at the future with special guest Ed Valentine of Big Blue View. What questions are the Giants facing regarding players, coaches, processes, and more? That's coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. You got me, your host, Patricia Traina, P-Train, and I'm joined by Santa Claus on today's show. That would be Ed Valentine. You guys recognize him. You know him. You love him. I love him, and I know him. Ed Valentine of Big Blue View joins me on today's program, and we're going to talk about the New York Giants, not so much about the upcoming game, but the New York Giants 2023 season has just basically gone poof, up in smoke. We're going to talk about picking up the pieces. We'll talk a little bit about the players and the future of the roster, the coaching, which is very important, the future of the coaching, and these quote-unquote processes that the Giants keep talking about, where they basically need to get better. So we're going to kind of spin a little head to the future on today's program. So thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. If you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Shout out to my everydayers, my Blue Crew community, and everybody in between. And Santa, thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Oh, you're welcome, Patty. I had to wear the hat for you. This is the last time I'll be on the show before Christmas. So, I came with props. I came prepared for you. Holiday spirit, all that good stuff. How you doing?
I'm doing well, but you put me to shame, man. I should have come with props too.
I'm not even. I had a comment that I'm going to keep to myself there, Patty. This is your show, and I'm not getting myself in trouble already.
I'll put you in jail if you do.
Oh, I know. I'll be in jail soon enough.
Exactly.
My granddaughter will put me in jail. She does every time I see her. So that'll come soon enough.
Well, all right. Well, better she do it than I do. So anyway, Ed, let's talk about this Giants team moving forward. 2023, for all intents and purposes, only 3 more weeks left. I mean, yes, the Giants are still mathematically alive for a playoff berth, but we all know that the chances of that happening slim to none, because not only do they have to win out, but they probably need a bunch of help from other teams that they just aren't going to get. So let's talk about the future of this roster. When you think of the core, you think of Dexter Lawrence, you think of Bobby Okereke, you think of Jalen Hyatt, you think of John Michael Schmitz, Andrew Thomas, Deontay Banks. I mean, is this really a good enough core, do you think? Or is the core, when you compare it to the core of some of the other teams in the NFC East, is it lacking?
To me, it's lacking, Patty. People ask me all the time, and they've asked me this for the last couple of years. We start talking about the draft, and people say, well, what position do the Giants need? Do they need an offensive tackle? Do they need a cornerback? Do they need a quarterback? Do they need whatever position? And I'm sure we'll do a lot of that again this year, but the reality of it is, what the New York Giants need are game-changing players. There just are not a lot of game-changing players on this roster. We consider Saquon Barkley a game-changing player. Andrew Thomas is a huge difference maker. Bobby Okereke has shown to be a huge difference maker. Dexter Lawrence is maybe the best in the business right now at what he does. Deontay Banks, I think, can be a difference maker as he grows throughout his career. But do we know yet if Jalen Hyatt can be more than just a speed guy? Do we know if Xavier McKinney's going to be back next year? There just aren't enough guys on this roster who I think are really, game changer. So you look at and say, he's a star.
Yeah, and you talk about the needs. I mean, going back to last year just for a moment, we all thought, okay, the Giants need this, they need that. Is it me or does it seem like the Giants need more this year than they did last year?
Well, I think it may look that way, Patty, because they're coming off of a worse season. It's entirely possible that we got fooled a little bit by the Giants a year ago. When you look at the quality of some of the wins that they had, going 9-7-1, wins over Tennessee and Green Bay that maybe in retrospect weren't as impressive as they might have seemed at the time. A win over a Minnesota team that really had 13 wins but wasn't a powerhouse 13-win team. So maybe we got fooled a little bit. I think you think back on it, Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale, they got a lot of credit last year for scheming around some of the things that the Giants didn't have. Guys like Dexter Lawrence played a ton of snaps. Leonard Williams, when he was still here, played a ton of snaps. They had no linebackers to speak of a year ago. So, and they didn't have a great offensive line, and they managed to scheme around it. They didn't have, tremendous wide receivers, and they schemed around it. So I don't know that they have more needs going into this year. I think maybe we just thought at the end of last year that they were farther ahead than they really were. I think we maybe overestimated just how far into this build the Giants were after 1 year with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll.
Now that said, Ed, you look at the list of needs for this team. Quarterback, which Joe Schoen has confirmed. Probably running back if they lose Saquon Barkley. Offensive line, you could probably, say add some more depth at cornerback. Probably safety if they don't retain Xavier McKinney. Probably, another edge rusher, I would say. That's a lot of needs. So if you're trying to prioritize based on how this team is set up on offense and defense, where do your priorities lie if you're Joe Schoen?
Patty, I always am one who wants to build from inside out. You and I have talked about this for years. If you can solidify the offensive line, a lot of things look better, about this New York Giants team. If you can add, I think it's a higher priority than maybe the Giants want to admit, but you need to add a player next to Dexter Lawrence, after moving on from Leonard Williams. You talk about a guy like Xavier McKinney, and we've discussed whether he should be back or not next year, but the way he's played lately, the Giants can't really afford to hemorrhage talent. So maybe they need to bring him back more than we would have thought a month or so ago. I don't know, beyond offensive line and quarterback, I haven't really sat down and said, the priority list is, 1, 2, 3, 4. But just about anything that you mentioned, from cornerback to a safety to a top tier wide receiver to even another tight end, considering the injury problems that Darren Waller has had, you can argue that there's nothing wrong with just about anything, with going just about any direction in terms of building this roster. But I think that a decent amount of resources have got to be put into the offensive line. And as you said, there's going to be, I think, 2 new quarterbacks on that 90-man roster come the spring, because you've got Tommy DeVito, you've got Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is not going to see the practice field until August, if then. So you need at least 3 quarterbacks to get through the spring and through training camp. So Tyrod Taylor is almost certainly not going to be one of them. So you need 2 more guys. So you've almost got to draft a quarterback somewhere along the way, and you probably have to pick up another free agent, because I don't think Matt Barkley is going to be the guy, to carry them through next off season.
Yeah. When you look at the young players on this roster, guys that maybe haven't gotten a lot of snaps, do you feel confident in this group, or do you feel that, okay, from our perspective, because we're not allowed to see the entire practices in season, we don't know how these guys have progressed. The coaches know, but obviously we don't see guys like Eric Gray getting snaps on offense very often. Javarius Owens is always a healthy scratch. Jordan Riley, until recently, didn't play. That being said, I mean, given what we do know about this younger talent, do you feel good about, what the Giants have in the pipeline?
Over the course of 2 drafts, maybe, but so many of those guys have been injured. You look at Marcus McKethan missing a whole year. You look at Josh Azudu missing huge chunks of 2 seasons. The guys that were drafted this year, John Michael Schmitz looks like a solid center. Jalen Hyatt, we look at, and I'm still not sure what Jalen Hyatt can be. I think there's still a lot of development that has to take place there. Deonte Banks, I think, is a terrific young player. People say, "Oh, his Pro Football Focus grade isn't that great," and I say, "I don't care. I don't care." He's had a couple of matchups this year, early in the year, that he was thrown into that he probably wasn't ready for. But I look at the way the young man competes. I look at how physical he is. I look at the way he bounces back, after games, the fact that nothing seems to bother the kid. He competes like crazy, and I think he's continuing to get better. So those 3 guys, I think I feel good about. Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously, you feel good about. Cordale Flott, you feel good about. If you're looking at, over a 2-year period, I think you feel good about. Other than that, I think you have a lot of questions. I don't know what Eric Gray can be. I don't know what Trey Hawkins can be. I don't know what Marcus McKethan can be. So have they gotten enough out of those 2 draft classes? I don't think we know yet. I really don't. I think, there's a lot of work to be done here, Patty. And unfortunately, injuries and all of that have really made it hard for some of these young guys to progress or to try to progress. Even Evan Neal, who's missed so much time this year, didn't play well when he was in there, but he's missed half a season now. And, a lot of things can change over a 6 or 7 game span. So, maybe we'll never know when it comes to Evan Neal. And we'll never know what the missed time this year, the missed time last year, how much has that set him back? I don't know. But, but it's hard to other than maybe the top 3 or 4 guys, Thibodeau and Banks and the first couple picks, it's hard to feel good about the rest of the guys. We just haven't seen enough.
Yeah, you're spot on with the injuries and whatnot. Now, Ed, coming up, I want to talk about the coaching, because I believe that has been a factor in some of what we have seen and what we haven't seen. So we'll talk about that coming right after this. Hey, Giant fans. The Big Blue season might be coming to an end in a couple of weeks, but basketball season is here. And did you know that when you play fantasy sports on Prize Picks, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League? This special league was created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. And did you also know that you can play along with friends and family by checking out the community tab? Prize Picks is so easy to play. Just pick 2 or more players, predict their stats, and sit back and see how they perform. It takes less than 60 seconds to make an entry, and when you play with Prize Picks, you'll enjoy quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and a wide selection of players and stat types. So what are you waiting for? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and that promo code is LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Hey, Giant fans, it's going to be a busy offseason for the Giants. And what better way to continue the conversation than as a member of the Locked On Giants Blue Crew community? Get exclusive content and opportunities delivered directly to your phone, such as private Q&A videos, breaking news, and so much more. Plus, members can keep the conversation going with me in one-on-one conversations via text. Join the dozens of Giant fans that have become part of this exclusive community. Try it for free for 14 days, and if you like it, do nothing and continue for just $4.99 a month. For more information or to register, visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants. You got me, Patricia Traina, and Santa. You lost the hat. Hey, come on, man.
Sorry, Patty, lost the hat.
It was, man.
It was getting toasty, Patty. I'm sorry.
Boo.
I'm sorry.
Boo.
Lost the hat.
It is.
Right.
We're still going to carry on with the show. And
all right.
And at the end of the last segment, I mentioned we were going to talk about the coaching, everybody's favorite topic. Now, you had said something in the first segment about, adding offensive line talent. And this is a point that I've made on the show. I've made this also on Giants Country. It seems like the Giants have tried to add offensive line talent. And for whatever the reason, with it, very few exceptions, it doesn't really develop. So you look at, the current group here. Andrew Thomas, he was established before, this coaching staff came in. You had John Michael Schmitz, a rookie, kind of been up and down. Joshua Zudu didn't really develop, before his injury. Marcus McKethan, again, before his injury, hadn't really developed, and then you look at guys like John Feliciano, who was here last year and who struggled and people couldn't wait to get rid of. And, oh, by the way, now he's doing well with the 49ers. So my question to you is, at what point do you say to yourself, okay, maybe it's not the talent we're bringing in. Maybe it's the coaching and the way that the coaching is developing this talent.
Patty, as you've been talking, I've been writing down names in my little notebook here. And I've come up with, these are the names that I've come up with since Pat Flaherty has been offensive line coach for the Giants. And I may have missed one, but I've got Mike Solari, Hal Hunter, Mark Colombo, Dave DeGuglielmo, Rob Sale, and now Bobby Johnson. And like I said, I might have missed somebody along the way, but I get asked all the time about why can't the Giants develop offensive linemen? Why do some of these guys go somewhere else and play better? Sometimes the answer is that, like a guy like Eric Flowers just was never comfortable in New York. You can vouch for that as well. He just never seemed to fit in that locker room. He never seemed to fit in the New York, New Jersey environment. But what you get when you consistently change coaches, coaching staffs, GMs, you get a lot of turnover. You get players who weren't brought in by the previous regime. You get new offensive line coaches year after year who bring in different schemes, different ideas, different philosophies, want different things, want different types of offensive linemen. And some of those guys that I named are good offensive line coaches. Some of them aren't, and that's what you get sometimes with turnover. Sometimes you get good coaches, sometimes you don't, but you get a constant stream of ideas. Who in the world thought that it was a good idea when the Giants fired Mark Colombo? How in the world did Joe Judge think it was a good idea to bring in Dave DeGuglielmo, with three rookies having been drafted that year? And the first words out of Dave DeGuglielmo's mouth were, "I hate rookies. They belong over there in the corner somewhere." You just get mismatches. You get guys who sometimes you're able to hire the people you want. Sometimes you're able to hire, whatever's available. And we talk about consistency. We talk about continuity. We talk about coaching. We talk about all of that. And when it's a new guy every year, when it's a new guy every 2 years, it's just not there. And I do think that has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with why guys don't develop, why guys seem to underperform and then play better. How do you explain Kevin Zeitler, who's a really, really good player, having the worst 2 years of his career playing for the New York Giants, and now once again playing like a top-tier guard now that he's in Baltimore? How do you explain that other than, the coaching and the circumstances that he was in? I don't know, but I think a lot of the continuity in the coaching has a lot to do with it.
It's a good point, the continuity. And, with that said, Ed, if you're Brian Dable and you look at this development of the offensive line over the last 2 years, do you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to stick with Bobby Johnson in the hopes that, sticking with the continuity will help fix it? I mean, this is a line that, they can't pick up stunts to save their lives on a consistent basis, which is disturbing. You see guys taking a step back. You've yet to see Evan Neal, when he's healthy, get comfortable in any kind of stance. So where do you draw the line if you are Brian Dable? Do you, and say, okay, you know what, Bobby, this just isn't working out. We're going to move on from you. Versus, you know what, Bobby, you've only been on the job 2 years. We've got to establish continuity and get these guys used to you. I mean, how do you balance it if you're the Giants?
Well, it's a tough one, Patty. I don't like to advocate for people to lose their jobs. It's their livelihood. I don't like to say, so-and-so needs to be let go. But when you think about the coaching staff that Brian Daboll put together, what did we laud him for again and again and again? We lauded him for going outside his comfort zone, for not just hiring people he had worked with, for not just hiring his friends, for hiring people with varying ideas and, who had come from places that didn't know him. Wink Martindale having been one of them, Mike Kafka having been another one. Bobby Johnson is one of those guys who came with Brian Daboll from Buffalo. And I think that what you have to look at is performance. Has Evan Neal gotten better? Evan Neal's no better today than he was the day he walked in the building. John Michael Schmitz is doing okay. But has John Michael Schmitz gotten better? You watch that game on Sunday, and a lot of those stunts that the Giants couldn't pick up involved John Michael Schmitz. All right. So you can't necessarily say that John Michael Schmitz has developed to the way that he should. Has Marcus McKethan developed the way that he should? We haven't seen enough. Josh Azudu is a guy they used a 3rd-round pick on. Didn't play well last year. Couldn't earn a starting job at guard this year over Ben Bredesen, who I think, is a good player, but is probably more of a backup guy, for throughout most of his career anyway. But so you keep looking at these young guys and you think they're not getting better. And I remember having a conversation with a guy that covers the Bills. Much of the offensive line that the Buffalo Bills are using today was there when Bobby Johnson was the offensive line coach in Buffalo. And you talk to Buffalo people, and those people will tell you that the offensive line with those same players is better now than it was under Bobby Johnson's tutelage. And you have to look at that. Like I said, I don't want to advocate for Bobby Johnson to lose his job, but if there are quality offensive line coaches out there, you just have to look at this offensive line and think, why can't veteran players pick up stunts? Why are our young players not getting better? If those are because of decisions that are outside of Bobby Johnson's control, that's one thing, but that's something we don't know. But if they're not getting better because Bobby Johnson's not able to get them better, if they can't communicate because Bobby Johnson is not properly teaching them how to communicate, that's Brian Daboll's job. That's Joe Shane's job to look beyond their friendship, to look beyond their long-term working relationship and do what they think is right for the development of the guys they've brought in.
Ed, we put a lot of emphasis on the offensive line and the job Bobby Johnson is or isn't doing. Are there any other assistant coaches, not coordinators? Well, because coordinators is a whole different topic. But are there any other assistant coaches that you feel have been kind of flying under the radar, who maybe are in that same questionable bracket as Bobby Johnson? Maybe not to the same degree, but who you look at the unit and you say, gosh, the Giants have so much talent here, but they're not getting the return on the investment.
Patty, it's so hard to judge position coaches because outside of the little bit that we see in training camp, we don't really see them work. We don't see, what goes on behind the scenes. We don't see the day-to-day drills that guys are doing in practice. We see the first 10 minutes. We see stretch basically, and we see guys throw the ball a little bit in individuals, and that's about it. But if you look at if you look at underperforming groups, it's hard to say. You look at I love Jerome Henderson, but is Trey Hawkins getting better? I don't know. Has Jalen Hyatt made the kind of progress you'd like to see him make? You would have liked to have seen him make so far this year? I don't know. I do know that there have to be some changes on this coaching staff. I don't know exactly who those guys are going to be, but Brian Daboll and Joe Shane at this point, after 2 years with this staff, should know who they believe are getting through to players and who is not getting through to players. And if I'm right, Patty, and correct me if I'm wrong, usually assistant coach contracts are for 2 years.
Yeah.
Usually. Mm-hmm. So most of this Giants coaching staff is probably up for new contracts at the end of this year. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these guys decide to go elsewhere. There's going to be a lot of head coaching jobs open. I would expect a lot of turnover on this staff. Just, there's going to be 7, 8, 9 new head coaches in the league anyway. There's going to be opportunities for guys to go elsewhere. So it's so hard to say, which guys are doing good jobs and which guys aren't. We love Andre Patterson. Andre Patterson's been a great defensive line coach for a long time. Wink Martindale loves Dean Wilkins. I don't really know how good a coach Dean Wilkins is, the outside linebackers coach. I just know that he's a Wink Martindale favorite. So it's impossible for me to say, but I think we both know there's going to be a much different coaching staff with the Giants next year.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And again, we haven't talked about the coordinators, where I suspect there's going to be some turnover as well with that unit. All right, now coming up next, Ed, we're going to talk real quick about the processes and what the Giants could do better. That this year they just fell asleep at the switch. So don't go anywhere, people. We'll be right back after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you want to secure tickets to your favorite concert shows and sporting events without the stress, you need to check out GameTime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets right up until the day of the event. With amazing deals on last-minute tickets and their best prices guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. With GameTime, you not only get the lowest prices guaranteed, you also get clear images of seat views and event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So go ahead and snag the tickets without the stress with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Terms apply. Again, that promo code is LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase at GameTime. Hey, Giant fans, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants. You got me, Patricia Traina, and Ed Valentine, my guest from Big Blue View. And don't forget to check out Ed's show, Big Blue View Radio, where I made a guest appearance, Sans the Santa Hat, which I wish I had thought of. And again, I don't own one, but next time I'll get you with some props, Ed. I'll have to
Now I know what to get you, Patty.
Yeah, you'll see me in a couple of weeks, so it'll be after Christmas, and you do owe me a Christmas gift. So anyway, all right, and let's talk about the quote unquote processes of the Giants. We hear Brian Daboll use that word a lot. And, you can define processes however you want, whether it be how they practice, how they prepare guys, how they handle injuries, how they set up the schedule, whatever the case may be. But based on what we have seen this year from Daboll and the staff, what processes really kind of got under your skin and made you question what they were doing?
Oh, Patty, I don't even know if they're processes per se, but I have shaken my head at a lot of the decisions that have been made this year. And I think, all of the decisions about these 90-man rosters and 53-man rosters and everything else, they're all the result of whatever process the Giants put in place to make those decisions. And the Giants have had a lot of injuries this year. They've had a lot of things happen that are really unexplainable. And yet, along the way, I think they've also had a lot of unforced errors. If you want to use a tennis term, they've had a lot of unforced errors, things that they did to themselves. I mean, you can talk about the way they constructed the offensive line. From cutting Tyree Phillips, keeping Shane Lemieux, not having keeping a swing tackle in Matt Peart that they obviously didn't have the confidence to use. What process led them to construct a backup offensive line the way that they did when it obviously, wasn't going to work. You can look at the way that they ran training camp. I thought that the priority in training camp in the preseason was to get to week 1 healthy. Okay. That's what I thought the priority was from day 1 of OTAs. Get to week 1 healthy. The problem was, I think when you look back on it, Dallas was better than they were. But when you look back on it, I think it's fair to ask, were they actually ready to play? These guys didn't play, and these guys barely played in the preseason. A lot of guys got a lot of time off through training camp. I think that's something they need to look at, is you're balancing injuries with workload and all that stuff. But I don't know if it's specific to coaches that came through New England, Patty, but we ran into this with Joe Judge too. They seem to look at the first 3 or 4 games of the season like extended preseason, almost like they don't count, like they're ramp-up games. And, excuse me, you get 17 opportunities. Maybe you should be ready for the first one. Maybe you should be ready before the 4th or 5th one. And I really didn't think that's the thing that bugs me the most, is I didn't think the Giants were ready when the season started.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, basically, we saw the starting offense with all the new pieces that they had, with an unsettled offensive line. And that's another story, waiting until 10 days before the start of the season to settle on your O-line, and then plugging different guys in that hadn't practiced at their certain positions all year. But,
no, go ahead, Patty. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you saw the Giants, they played one series with their starters against a Carolina team that, in retrospect wasn't very good. And they deemed, okay, we're ready to go.
You didn't settle on.
I never understood that.
They didn't settle on their starting guards until after the preseason, until a week before the Dallas game. And they ended up using Josh Azudu as the backup left tackle when Andrew Thomas went down, after Brian Daboll over and over and over said, we're moving guys around to be prepared in case of injuries. Well, then how come you wound up with a left tackle playing who didn't take a left tackle snap all summer? You know, so that mystified me. You know, why didn't you go, if you didn't have confidence in Matt Peart, why didn't you go out and get somebody? Why did you sign 18 slot receivers?
I thought it was 60.
I thought it was 87 or something like that. That might be the number I've used before, but you know, you signed all these slot receivers, and maybe you should have used some of that money on a backup tackle, or maybe you should have kept the one that you had. But you know, those are the kinds of things that mystify me. We can argue about, you know, decisions like, you know, maybe they should have kept a veteran cornerback for some depth. They should have probably, you know, it would have been nice if they had more depth on the edge and things like that. But when I look at it, I look at processes and I'm like, you know, coaches and GMs and front offices, they have to be honest with themselves and look at, you know, what mistakes did we make in constructing this football team? And why did we make that mistake? You know, why did we cut that player, you know, when we had to bring him back halfway through the season and he's played good football for us? What led us to cut that player? You know, what part of our process or what part of our thinking was flawed that we let Tyree Phillips go?
Or their handling of the punt returner too.
Or their handling of punt returner, where, you know, that one has mystified me all season, Patty. And you and I both love Sterling Shepard. I had Shep on my podcast a week or so ago as part of a holiday promotion that he was doing, and you know, we had a great chat, and I hope people get a chance to check that out on YouTube or on my podcast channel. But why have the Giants tiptoed around the fact that Sterling Shepard has not helped this football team all year long, when they could have kept someone like Jamison Crowder in that role as a punt returner? Or why have they basically fair caught every kickoff return for the last 2 weeks when they're making Paris Campbell, who's a good kickoff returner, inactive, and keeping Sterling Shepard, who doesn't do anything for them? I don't understand why they're tiptoeing around Shepard. You know, there's just, I did a piece on this a month or so ago, just on all of the things that I don't understand. And you know, I wish I had it in front of me right now, but I don't. But that's the thing for me, is this is a bright front office. Joe Schoen is a bright young general manager. Brian Daboll is a smart head coach. But I haven't understood a lot of the decisions they've made. I haven't understood a lot of the game plans that they've put on the field this year. I never understood why in the games that Daniel Jones started as quarterback, they basically ignored Saquon Barkley, while in the games that Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor have started, they've ridden Barkley like a mule. You know, I haven't understood that at all. So just a lot that I haven't been able to figure out this year.
And let's throw in the injury factor. You know, they have all these sports science people, but yet, lo and behold, the team was heavily injured this year with soft tissue injuries. And I know I asked Joe Schoen about it, and he says, well, it's not just one injury. If we knew if it was the same injury, we could look into it. Soft tissue injuries, whether they're to the hamstrings or to, you know, a soft tissue injury is a soft tissue injury, regardless of the body part. So what aren't they doing? And then the handling of these guys, you know, you and I talked on your show how Andrew Thomas, you know, when he pulled his hamstring chasing down that field goal, whose bright idea was it to leave him in there and let that thing get worse?
Yeah, at some point in that week 1 game, you have to realize you're not winning. Get Andrew Thomas out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, excuse me, Patty, the Graham Gano one was interesting because they swore up and down that he was completely healthy until they put him on IR. Yeah. They swore up and down that he was fine. You know, when it was obvious that he wasn't. And, and that I didn't understand. I mean, that wound up costing them a football game too.
Sure.
So, but which, it sure would be nice to have that game back. And it sure would be nice to have the Buffalo game back if you're the Giants at this point. But yeah, there's just, you talk about processes, and whatever the processes are, I shake my head at some of the decisions that those processes have led to, because there's so much about this year that I just do not understand. Like I said, from the beginning construction of the 90-man roster, to, you go all the way back to Sunday, to how Wink Martindale, a defensive coordinator famous for pressure breaks pipes, blitzing more than just about anybody, can come up against a New Orleans team missing its best offensive lineman, with a stationary quarterback who doesn't handle pressure well, who's been criticized by players that have played with him for how he handles pressure, and to sit in a soft zone and not blitz. I fail to understand, like I said, everything from 90-man roster to a lot of the game plans that they've put together this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, this year more so than any, I've sat there asking myself, what are they doing? And I think, Ed, in conclusion here, do you agree that it's fair to say that the 2023 season, the way it's turned out, is not all on the injuries? It's not all on the players, but it is a total organizational fail.
Absolutely. I think so, because we've talked about enough. There's certain things that you can't do anything about. Some of the injuries you're not going to do anything about. And yet you can also say, does Daniel Jones lose as much time as he lost this season if they protected him a little bit better? Does Tyrod Taylor break 4 ribs if he wasn't running for his life? A lot of the injuries that happened, but absolutely. I mean, there are, obviously maybe some players, haven't had the year that you'd like them to have. You've got injuries, but it's been a complete fail. Like I said, some game plans, some decisions that got made, some of the off-season personnel moves, what they brought in, what they didn't bring in. It's a silly, small little thing, but I look at the Giants cornerback situation, and they sure would benefit from a veteran backup cornerback on this team. And Fabian Moreau has played really good football for the Denver Broncos this year, after playing really good football for the Giants last year. So I mean, maybe that doesn't change their record, but it sure would have helped them, as a team. It's just small decisions like that lead to just a constant string of decisions that are questionable. And like you're right, it's been a complete organizational failure.
And in short, a lot of work for Joe Shane, Brian Dable to do this offseason, from the roster restructuring to changing up some of these processes, to deciding whether to stick with the coaching that they have or go in a different direction. So much uncertainty, but you know what, Ed? It's going to make for a very interesting offseason as we cover it on our respective sites and on our respective podcasts. So I don't know about you, but this was very therapeutic to just kind of break all this down and look at it objectively without the rose-colored glasses. And Ed, I don't know about you, but I tell my listeners all the time, hang in there, guys. Sunnier skies are ahead. I know we want them yesterday, but it's going to happen. I mean, you just got to keep the faith, and until they show that, they just don't deserve your confidence anymore. So on that note, Giant fans, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Giants podcast. Thanks to Ed Santa Claus Valentine for popping on, despite the fact that I know he's feeling a little under the weather. So I appreciate you. There's the hat. You let me down, man. You should have had it on. But anyway.
Sorry, Patty. Sorry, Patty. I thought you'd like to look at my bald head for a while.
Well, all right. I guess. All right. I'll forgive you this time. But anyway, Giant fans, we will see you tomorrow. It'll be locked on. It'll be the crossover show of Locked On Giants, Locked On Eagles. I'll have Gino Camilleri with me, and we'll start to break down this game coming up because there is a game coming up on Monday, Christmas Day. Will the Giants play Scrooge to the Eagles, or will the Eagles play Scrooge to the Giants? I think we kind of know what the answer would probably be, but we'll break it down for you. So on behalf of Ed Valentine, I'm Patricia Traina. Thank you, and we will see you tomorrow.